Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living in the Light. I'm your host, Javannah Davis, and today we're here with Chanel Lopez, Deputy Director of LGBTQ Plus Affairs for Governor Kathy Hocul at the Executive Chamber. And just to give you a little bit about Ms. Lopez has been an activist and advocate, carrying the weight and standing to fight for the transgender and gender nonconforming community for well over a decade. Before entering into the governor's mansion, Lopez, occupied New York City Mayor's office as Transgender Communities Liaison for New York City Commission of Human Rights. Now, mind you, each role has been a milestone for Chanel as being the first trans Afro-Latina woman of color to be in such positions. It is such an honor to welcome Chanel Lopez.
Yes. Thank you so much. So excited. I've been looking forward to this interview since the first day you told me about it, and I'm excited for it. I can't wait to have a conversation with someone who I love dearly.
Oh, thank you so much. I guess the first thing we're going to start talking about is how did you get into the role that you're in now? Like, where did it start? Where did you find that fire and that passion to do what you're doing that got you to the level you are at today?
Oh my goodness. Sometimes I always say that you never know where destiny is taking you. And sometimes you just have to go with the flow and just believe in the God that you serve, that he has a purpose for you. And I mean, rewind to like 20 years ago, I never thought I would be sitting in a position like this. I was one of the new trans girls out there, and the mentality that we had, when I first went to my friends and I said, "Oh, I want to transition." Excuse me. The first thing that one of my friends told me was, "Oh, if you want to transition, you have to sell yourself. You have to do sex work because they're not going to hire us. And you want breasts, you want body, you want hormones, and nobody would hire us. So the only thing we can do is sell ourselves." And that was the mentality that I had for so many years because, I mean, I don't know how this is going to sound, but like my grandmother always said, "Tell me who you hang out with and I will tell you who you are."
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. You are the company you keep.
Exactly. And so that was my lifestyle because that's what my friends were doing. And that was the mentality that they were on. And that was what they bestowed on me, telling me that, that was the only way we can survive this world. But, I did a little bit of performing around New York City back when the gay clubs were like
popping. Yeah.
Now I don't find them, but like I was performing, when Karen Covergirl was out there, Chachita Rubio, Barbie, my mom, Jessica Fox, Donnie from Pose. We was performing during all that time. That's how we all became a family. And so I did a little bit of performing. I had lost my job. I always talk about how this is why I always say I love my community. I support my community. I do whatever I need to do for my community, but sometimes I stay away from my community.
Right. Now, and why is that? Why do you feel you have to do that?
I started taking these courses. I had bumped into a friend of mine who told me, "Hey, girl, have you heard about Explain and Survive?" And I was like, "No, I don't know. I never heard of it." And he had told me, I don't know whatever happened to him, but if I was to see him in the street, I would say thank you. Because he was like, "Oh, you should take these courses." And so I applied. I was one of the few girls that they chose because they only had 6 slots for people that were not positive and that were trans. And basically an 8 weeks course on on HIV, Hep C courses, and one of the teachers that were there really liked me, and he was like, have you ever considered about working? Because I didn't want to work. I said, you know what, I'm doing my shows, I do a little bit of sex work on the side, and I don't need to work. I will be
You're
sleeping,
good.
I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that doesn't, not nowadays, especially, doesn't do nothing for you. It's everything's so expensive. you know
Right.
Nothing is the same anymore, and things are even more dangerous now. you know
Right.
um so I took the course, but I was addicted to drugs because
Mm-hmm.
doing sex work, I didn't like the feeling, so I used to do drugs, as they say, numb the pain. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I used to do all types of drugs, you name it. The only drug I didn't do was heroin, but I did every other drug. And I used to come to work a little, like strung out.
Mm-hmm.
Trans woman who wanted the position that I had, um, rat me out, said, "Oh, she's coming to work high. She's coming to work high." And so she kept telling the supervisors and directors that I was coming to work high, and she was right. But Dan says, "You didn't have to rat me out like that." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so they ended up letting me go, and it was right around the time that I was getting my apartment. Right
Oh
around,
no.
because I had lived in the shelter for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, I ended up working for a nonprofit organization where I used to do shows for them. I went and I spoke to the executive director. I told her that I was looking for a job, that I was just like go where I was at, and that I would, and I just got an apartment and I'm about to leave the shelter and I don't want to go back to the shelter. So she gave me an opportunity. I worked there. It was one of the first organizations in the Bronx called the Bronx Community Pride Center. And it was the one and only LGBTQ organization for the youth in the Bronx at that
Mm.
time. And
About how old were you at that time?
oh my goodness, how old was I? I want to say I was 32.
Okay.
Like that was yeah, I want to say somewhere around my 30s, between 30 and 32.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working there. It was a nonprofit organization. Things happened at the nonprofit organization. They ended up closing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Or it closed down. I had an incident. There was an incident in Fordham Road many years ago where I don't know if you heard about it. A gay guy was dating a Latin king, and I believe he was killed. He was tortured.
I
Uh,
actually do remember hearing that story very vaguely. I do.
yes,
Mm.
so we won't get into all of that.
Right. Right.
But um, this organization called the New York City Anti-Violence Project, they were mainly in Manhattan. So
Mm-hmm.
they came, they wanted to have like sort of like a satellite office in the Bronx, because they noticed that the Bronx had one of the high most hate crimes population, rates.
Yeah.
So I met with the director of that, the deputy director of that program, and so I had they went over the job description, what it was that they were looking for. They were looking for someone in the community, someone who knows the trans community very well, and so I jokingly said, "Oh wow, this is I should apply for this job." And first she tells me, and she tells me, "Well, we thought about you, but we don't want to, we don't want to burn no bridges." And I said, "Don't worry, give me your business card." She gave me her business card. I sent her my resume. At first they wasn't gonna hire me. They were gonna
Mm-hmm.
butch queen. Okay. They
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they were gonna hire a butch queen for a position that required a trans woman to run it, to be on that position. So I know the person that actually they hired, and he went through it, and he said like a week later he quit And he said, this role is not for me. This role is for someone who is trans. I'm not trans. I'm a gay man.
Right.
So they called me back and they said, oh, we would like to offer you the position. And then I turned around and I said, I'll give you a call back. Let me think about it. It's, I said, I will think about it. I'll think about it. But you know what? I ended up taking it. And
Uh-huh.
it came right on time. That's why I say the God you serve works in mysterious ways, because right when I started working for that New York City Anti-Violence Project, Bronx Community Pride Center closed down like 6 months later.
Wow.
And the employees that were there were left without a job. So I was there. We had different types of satellite offices throughout the Bronx. I ran 3 offices. One, it was Community Healthcare Network. The other one was Bronx Aid Services. And another one was Citywide Harm Reduction. So from there, I went inside and I learned from being a hate violence. What was it? I forgot the first title, but the second title they offered me, they said, we like the way you work and give you a better position inside our offices. And I said, okay, no problem. So I became the hate violence counselor advocate. And I worked with the New York City Anti-Violence Project for like about 3 years. There, I learned what IPV was, what sexual violence was. I learned that I was a victim myself from a young age, being molested by my uncle. I also, experienced intimate partner violence once I had left my house. So that was another way I found out, AVP educated me a lot. Even though I was one of their employees, I also was very educated. But I was there for 7 years. Before I finished working there, I was the senior counselor advocate. It was pretty good, but I was like, I need to grow, and I feel like I'm not going to grow here. And
Okay.
so one of my friends told me they were hiring at the mayor's office. So I said, "Oh, we get into this phase where like we're comfortable where we're at, and we're scared to make choices or to make change, and that's why I'm a firm believer that change is always good. So
Right.
and sometimes it's not always good, right? Sometimes
Right.
you make a mistake, but you learn and you move on. But I ended up, what was it? I ended up applying for the position after like a month that I had it in my inbox. My friend was like, "You should apply. You should apply. They want someone bilingual." The commissioner wanted her, but because she didn't speak bilingual, she knew I spoke bilingual, and she's like, "You should really apply for this job." And I was just like, "No, I'll do it. I'll do it," and I didn't do it. It was in my inbox for about a month, and I
Wow.
said, you don't have nothing to lose."
Now, through this whole process, were you still battling addiction, and how did
No,
it affect you?
yeah. Addiction. I was one of the lucky ones that were able to quit cold turkey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was able to quit cold turkey from the drugs that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was still doing here and there a little bit of, but not like an addiction. It wasn't an addiction like it was before. And so once I ended up applying, I said, I'll apply for this job. What
Mm-hmm.
that can happen? They're not gonna hire me. That's exactly what I said. I was like, well, if they call me, I go for the interview. If they hire me, I'm in. If they don't, at least I still have a job.
Right.
So I ended up going through the interview. I went through 2 interviews, and the commissioner and the lady that interviewed me, Doreen, she loved me. The commissioner loved me, and they hired me. Uh, so
Um,
that's how I became the transgender community liaisons for the City Commission on Human Rights, which is city level under the mayor. So I
oh,
ended up like about 3 years.
really? At the
Yeah,
mayor's office?
at the mayor's office. At the City Commission, which is part of the mayor's office. I ended up
Mhm.
working like about 3 years. And a friend of mine, through those 3 years I network, I met people. Then I realized one of my good friends was leaving the mayor's office to go work in the governor's office.
Mm-hmm.
And so through word of mouth, one of my friends had called me and said, they're hiring at the governor's office, and I think you would be the perfect person for this position. I was like, really? So I ended up applying, and you know what? A year later, here I am working for the governor. And it doesn't. And it sounds easy, but it's not easy. It was a lot of struggle. I struggled to get to where I am. I still struggle, on a daily life, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and physically, because when you're like going through depression or anxiety or other stuff like emotional stress, your body takes a toll on you, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so but I love it. I
What do
am.
you do to help you with that mental health stress? How do you center yourself and bring yourself back to you to where you find your peace and a little bit of joy regarding what you want and what makes you happy?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It really is hard because sometimes I tell myself, damn, you're not meant to be happy. Because when I think I'm happy in one way, that something another way always comes and like smacks me in the, and then,
Yeah.
oh damn, I'm full of joy, and here comes something to steal my joy. But
Right.
I think about good things that happen to me in life, great people that I meet. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this moment right now is a joyous moment for me, right? So
Mhm.
sitting here being interviewed by you and talking to you and getting to even know you on a whole different level, to me these are moments I cherish. When I go out there and I go to work events and I network and I meet people in the room, because I'm all about good energy and the room is full of good energy, that those are moments that I take into strive. When I'm out here doing speaking engagements or meeting with other organizations and letting them know who I am and who I represent and what do I do in the government, those are moments that are for me, that are self-care. When
Okay.
I meet with friends, when I meet up with friends, or when it just, even simply talking to friends,
Yeah.
it's a self-care for me.
Just being able to express yourself and being heard and just getting that out instead of carrying it with you day in and day out.
And sometimes it's things that you can't talk about because nobody would understand. But
Right.
to have someone talking to, even for that moment, about anything else,
Hmm.
it's I take that and I cherish that.
Now, what would you tell uh, the trans uh, folks or gender nonconforming people or the youth that are out there in the streets and they're doing the sex work and they feel like that's all there is for them? Like, you did that, but it got to a point where you like, I need more than this. This isn't really giving me what I need. And what motivation do you think would help them to find their way out of that as well? Not that sex work is a bad thing. If that's what you want to do, if that makes you happy,
Yes,
go for it.
I know someone who said they won't go to work because they love sex work. The money's easy. They make up their own time, their own hours. They don't have a boss and
Right.
enjoy doing sex work. And like I said, to each his own. But if you
Right.
this because you have the need to survive and you don't want to continue doing that, not wanting to continue to be a sex worker because you want more for yourself should be your motivation.
Okay.
And that was my motivation. I wanted more for myself. I refused to go back to the shelter, and I refused to go back onto drugs. So the
Mhm.
only way I could do that is to keep myself busy and motivating myself and inspiring others, and trying to go through the path that I want. Eventually, like right now, I always joke around, but I'm open to I'm open to it if it comes. But I always joke around and I say, oh, well, I started working at the city level. Now I'm in the state level. Maybe I need to go work for the federal level now.
Right. Why not?
And I'm like, but that's my motivation. Like, you know what? Why can't I be working on the federal level?
Yeah.
Hmm?
And if that's where you want to go, you have your resume will definitely get you there. I
Yeah,
mean, as hard as you worked over the years.
absolutely. And networking is important.
Yeah.
You never know. Sometimes we don't. We can be. I can be antisocial. I will tell you that much. I can get into my phase where I want to be isolated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go nowhere. Only from work, home from work. I don't want to do so. I get into those periods in my life, but I always welcome an opportunity to network. Why?
Right.
Because I networking. You just don't know who you're gonna meet,
True.
and and you don't know that person that you met might be the person that's gonna take you to the next level in life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So with the position you're in now, um, what's the most important thing that you want to accomplish in this position that you're in now that benefits the transgender GNC community, but especially the Black and Brown transgender GNC community?
We need funding, so I want to more funding for schools, for basic needs, like just open up a GED school for LGBTQ kids. You know,
Right.
wrong with that, and I'm sure that many will go back
Hold
to
on.
school.
Hold on just a minute. Honey. You got it, babe? Okay. We baking pie.
Oh yes.
Because I can edit this part out. So I'm like, he in here working. So we
Bake,
just gonna
bake pie with Javannah.
let him make his pie so I can finish my interview.
Okay.
You make it's crumbling, baby. I can hear it.
But yeah, that's what I want to be able to. I want to be able to go places that I want to break down those doors and go places that, or I should no, I should say, I want to go places and break down those doors where we are told that we don't belong,
Right.
and that's what I want to accomplish working for the governor, because working on this level can help break barriers down.
Yeah. And not just like with funding, like extensive healthcare services for transgender, gender nonconforming people. Like just fighting to be able to for them to be able to afford those gender affirming surgeries and not necessarily consider them cosmetic, because in hindsight some of these cosmetic surgeries is what keeps these people from jumping off a bridge because they can't take what they're seeing in the mirror.
No, absolutely, and I agree. Um, it's costly, especially for a trans woman who works.
Mm-hmm.
These surgeries can cost a lot of money, a lot of deductibles, and I feel like no trans woman or trans man should pay for surgery.
Right.
Nothing out of pocket. Why? Because this is, like you said, this is an affirming surgery that's going to prevent them from committing suicide because they're aligning themselves with their.
Right. And how I got distracted. Hold on. Okay. And not only that, but with this new law that has been passed in South Dakota, where parents can be forced to detransition their children under the age of 18, it's laws like that that really puts fear in the hearts of so many trans folks all around the country because this stuff is happening at a state level. So when we speak to officials and people in those positions, we want to stress the fact that we can't let this happen where our people live, and we have to fight to get these things overturned because it feels like our rights as women, our rights as Black folks, our rights as whomever is being taken away if you're not a cisgender white man.
Pretty much.
Yeah, so it's knowing that type of thing. How do you feel that's being handled at where you are at your level?
The one thing I can say about our governor is that she is so proactive for the LGBTQ community. She is someone who believes in equal rights. She is someone who believes that we should live our lives the way we should want to live our lives, right? And she allows stuff like that to go down in her state, right?
Yeah.
But that also brings me to this. This is why it's important for people to go out and vote,
Right.
especially the LGBTQ community. We don't vote enough the way we should, right? So important because when we don't vote, we have people like in South Dakota, people in Florida, right? Making these anti-gay laws, but it's because we didn't go out there and we voted.
Right.
You know, get to know your candidates. Get to see which candidate is proactive, who is a big supporter, who is a big ally, and go vote for them.
Now, do you think that there needs to be something in place for like a campaign or something that recruits people in the transgender or LGBTQ plus community, mainly the transgender community, the Black and brown transgender community, to go out and vote and register them, being in a position to help them register, fill out the paperwork? Because I know at certain things over the summer, there was someone tabling that was registering people to vote, and I got some of the paperwork and brought them over to my table. And as people was coming to my table, I was like, listen, I'll help you fill this out if you need to, but you need to register to vote. We have to start voting. Do you think that would be beneficial if we set something up within different communities?
I believe so, yes. And for example, you know, tabling events, outreach events. You know, I've been to outreach events where they have a table. You know, here in New York City is very visible now to vote in the LGBTQ community because, like I said, I've gone to outreach events where there's tabling events and there's a table with a stack of voting voting applications. And the sad thing is that I've seen people also skip those type of tables. You know, so it's like, how can we talk about we want to see change if we're not sitting there and playing our part?
Right, making that change happen. Now, a little birdie told me that you used to be a plus size model. Where did that come from?
I actually used to model for this this designer called Smart Glamour. Oh, it was a plus size. It's not only plus size, she does clothes for all types, for amputees, for big girls, small girls, trans, she does. So that's how I got into modeling. And then I have friends by word of mouth who would like hire me to model for them. I still do too. I think my last modeling show was pre-COVID in February.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. You just a jack of all trades.
I love
full of surprises.
You have to. Someone told me for you to survive, honey, you need multiple incomes.
Right. Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in New York City or?
No, I was born and raised in New York City. Back then was called El Barrio. Um,
About
El Barrio, right on 99th Street and Lexington Avenue. And I half my life I was in that three block radius because I was born in Metropolitan Hospital, which was on 99th Street and Second Avenue, and I lived on 99th Street and Lexington Avenue, which was two avenues over. So I lived there practically all my life. I did go to the Dominican Republic for about 3 years to live with my dad, toxic, and I
Yeah.
back.
Okay. When you say toxic, what do you mean?
Toxic masculinity at its height.
Yeah.
Dominican, my dad, my uncles, old school,
To
weren't
have
raised
a little trans girl running around the house.
right. Yeah. And the irony of life is that my dad doesn't speak to me because I'm trans, but one of his nephews, his girlfriend was trans.
Really?
Yeah.
So you currently don't speak to your father?
No, we don't have no type of relationship.
Oh, okay. How about your mother?
My mom, we have a good relationship.
She's in New York City with you?
She's in New York City.
Okay.
Relationship. We have our ups and downs, but it's a better relationship than I have with my father.
Okay. I guess, and that brings me to asking, how was you growing up and your coming out as who you are and living your best life? Like, how was that for you?
It was difficult.
Yeah.
Growing up, I grew up with my grandmother and my mom, really, from that side of the family. It was difficult. I grew up going to church a lot.
Mhm.
Like it was my whole lifestyle was school, home, church, home, and school. That was like if we went to a wedding, if we went to a sweet 16, if we went to an event or a party, it was because the church was having the party. No,
Wow.
we never did anything outside of the church. If we went on trips, it was with the church. If we went to, on vacation, it was with the church. Everything was with the church. And that's how I grew up. And so, my mom had this idea of like being the mother of the groom and, just wanting, she wanted to live her dreams through me. But,
Yeah.
I couldn't, and I wasn't happy with myself. I was miserable,
Right.
felt like I lived a double life. Like, I'm like, oh my God. And there were times where when I lived with my grandmother, I would go to my friend's house with my book bag and my women's clothing and, and get dressed at my friend's house. And I would come, go to his house and change again before I went home. Or sometimes I would change back into being a boy when in the projects where I lived at.
Wow. So was a lot of hiding and ducking and dodging.
A lot of that in the beginning, a lot of that, which is one of the reasons I ended up leaving my house because I was like, I didn't know nothing. I didn't know nothing about the trans community until I was about 27, 28.
How long or how old were you when you left home?
I was like 25.
25. Oh, wow. So you waited a little bit.
Yeah. I'm what they
And
call a
yeah, in the trans world, that's a late bloomer.
That's a
Yes.
boomer. Yes. So I ended up leaving. So, and that was the way I ended up meeting a trans woman. And she told me all about transitioning. I didn't even know she was trans. I was like, she's a trans woman. Like, what is that?
Right.
Like, I didn't know what it was. I had to get educated about it. And education is so important. And I don't mean sitting in a classroom. You're educating yourself. Google. Now things are so much easier than it was back then. Because you can literally sit here and Google anything.
everything
and it will
with
give
videos to match.
yes. So it's like the generation from now have it so easy. We didn't have none of that.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we didn't know what hormone was. We was learning from the old school girls.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Rabbit girls, because you know at one point everyone had to look like Jessica Rabbit.
Right. That was the go-to back then.
Yes.
That was it. Wow.
Yes.
All right, Chanel. Well, I won't keep you much longer. I enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed talking to you too. Maybe when I start my podcast, you'll be my first guest.
Oh, thank you.
I've been really, really leaning towards um starting a podcast.
Okay. Tell us more about that podcast.
It's gonna. I wanted to. I don't know what I'm gonna call it yet, but it's gonna touch different views, especially views on like when cis men think that we want them, even when we don't want them.
Right.
You know.
Exactly.
So there's gonna be topics around that line, like
It's
or
like you can't get
or
a cis woman to look at you. What makes you think I want you?
right, or like when guys say, "Oh, I don't mind you being gay, but just as long as you don't hit on me." The mentality of men that will say that
Yeah.
gay friends, right? Or
Right.
or like, "Oh, I don't mind you're trans, okay." But I'm not down with that. Like nobody asked you. So for my podcast is gonna be around that.
Okay. I'm looking
It's
forward to that.
it's gonna be spicy, but but the point is I want men to start thinking on how toxic they sound when
Mhm.
they do things like that and maybe be more open and acceptable.
Right. Oh, I already got some topics we need to talk about when it comes to toxic masculinity, baby. That could be an all-nighter.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. Things like
Okay.
hmm
All right. We're gonna be looking forward to it. And
yeah.
again, Chanel, thank you so much for sitting
Thank
here with
you.
us.
Yes, thank you for thinking about me and having me as part of your interview. I was very excited and I was really looking forward to it.
Thank you. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach out to the Deputy Director of LGBTQ plus affairs?
Yes, so my email is my name, Chanel.Lopez at exec.ny.gov.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for watching Living in the Light. Here I'm your host again with Javannah Davis. And always remember, be good to yourselves and each other. Bye.